perceived it way worse.
Yeah.
Or treated equally. I don't know. Just the rest from week to week.
Whatever way it flows.
My God, yesterday way up.
You're not,
I'm going to the end of it.
you're not in the
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tried it.
Oh, yeah, that's the last one.
Thank God.
Not until you
That's the last one.
Oh,
folks.
I thought first thing I ever talked
with
I just
Hope so.
I know you.
No, I spent a lot of time there as a kid. Oh, I know.
I still know it.
No, I know, you know.
Something for me, obviously, because I'm the Orange Juice.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, my, I blame my mother. I just want to it's terrible.
I know the resolution.
And that's why I can't breathe.
Bring her over here.
Yeah, we'll do planning. Yeah.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We'll call the meeting to order. I want to welcome everyone here to City Hall. Mayor Brown, his flight didn't make it in, so we're going to proceed without him. Before we get going, I do want to recognize MLA Peter Bevan Baker is with us, Ole Hammerland, Natalie Jameson, and Councillor Peter Megg. So welcome and thank you for joining us. Is there any declarations of conflict of interest?
I'll pick a conflict of interest on the planning and heritage and Pine. It's perceived that I could be in conflict, so I'm going to seek out a legal opinion on that.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Durong. Before we approve the agenda, is it okay if council if we move sustainability ahead of planning? Okay, great, thank you. So approval of the agenda. Councillor Twill.
Your Worship, I'd like to add, with council's permission, I'd like to add 2 resolutions.
Okay, is that okay, council? If we add 2 resolutions under new business?
One's under parks, and the other is under new business.
New business? Okay. Council's okay with that?
See if Atlantic can hear us.
Okay, thank you. I also should mention Councillor Yankoff has called in on the speakerphone to join us. Okay, can I have approval of the minutes from January 13th, 22nd, and 28th? Moved by Councillor MacLeod, second by Councillor Ramsey. Thank you. Any business arising out of those minutes? Okay, seeing none. We'll move into our first committee, Environment and Sustainability. Can I have a motion to accept the minutes, please?
Yeah.
Moved by Councillor Rivard, second by Councillor McCabe. Thank you. Okay, we'll move into reports. Councillor MacLeod.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Cody. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. Nice to see a full turnout here this evening. The Environment and Sustainability Committee met on January 9th, 21st, and 28th. The Mayor's Task Force on Active Transportation met on January 14th. And the Food Council met on January 21st. And the draft minutes are included in your package. I have a few highlights here I'd like just to cover. The monthly ridership for Charlottetown Transit system was 65,306 for January 2020, which is a 15% increase, Your Worship, compared to January of 2019. So all good things ahead there. The high school transit pilot currently running at Charlottetown Rural and Colonel Gray is staying steadily at 697 rides by participating students, which is good to see that it's maintaining. The first phase of the City's Bring It campaign has wrapped up. For the final count of 533 people made the pledge to bring their reusables instead of single-use plastics like their water bottles, plastic cutlery, and coffee cups, and so on. So the next phase of the program will be to work with the business community to encourage and recognize the reduction of single-use plastics. The Environment and Sustainability is also working closely with economic development and events management to encourage and promote sustainability at our city events and partners events. And on behalf of the Environment and Sustainability, I'd like to thank the Finance Committee and Department for hosting the Budget Open House. This event was was a great opportunity to hear from residents about their priorities, and we were able to have a number of meaningful conversations around cycling infrastructure and transit. Thank everyone for coming and participated in that. And as I also like to mention, the Mayor's Task Force on Active Transportation and the Food Council met this month, like I said, and they're making steady progress in their goals. Just before I take any questions, if any, I would like to do a presentation here this evening. It's the 2020 Brook Award established by the Ellens Creek Watershed Group, and it's named for the brook trout who, if thriving in Charlottetown waterways, suggest the watersheds are healthy and vibrant. Periodically, the Brookie is awarded to an individual or group that has made an outstanding contribution to the health of the city watersheds. The first recipient was our own Ramona Doyle, Manager of Environment and Sustainability for the City of Charlottetown. Today, we are very proud to announce the winner of the 2020 award is Dr. John Andrew of East Royalty. Just before we do the picture, come on up, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
John co-chairs the Wrights Creek Watershed Environmental Committee that is responsible for the health of Wrights Creek and Andrews Pond. John has been almost single-handedly returning the creek and the pond to environmental health from their morbid state years back. John has been able to have all three levels of government support his efforts, the results of his quiet determination, and a most effective use of environmental science to make his case. The Andrew family have been stewards of the land and water in East Royalty for generations. John brings to the community a strong commitment to the health of individuals, the health of the community, and the health of the environment we live in. But better than most, John knows the close independence of all three. In his professional, personal, and community life, John leads the way we would all do well to follow. Congratulations, John.
Actually, Carrie, can we have one with John's wife also?
Hey, Don, I know what it feels like to be on the red carpet.
Christine.
Just to wind up, I would like to say just a couple of things. We started the Wrights Creek Watershed Group 15 years ago. Aaron Riggs and myself were the primary people within the group for the last 50. Well, we had a couple of people more when we first started, but for most of the time it's been Aaron and I. So I want to recognize Aaron as working very hard with me over the years. We are reconstituting our group to add more members, and that's been great. We're very enthusiastic people that are willing to keep the group going for the next long while, and a lot of them are here, so thank you for coming, and thank you to the others in the political area that have come as well to help me celebrate. And thank you to the city in particular, because Terry has been involved in this through this whole
Yep.
time, and has been extremely helpful in
Thank you, John.
things that we've done.
That was a pleasure. Always a pleasure working with you. If it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have a lot of the environmental For example, Andrews Pond, I mean, it was only 10 years ago that it was inoxic. It was basically dead. And so with your leadership, I mean, I just help when I can, but it was your leadership that brought that back to life, and all the work that you put into your community, it's amazing. Really just pleased to be able to be with you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
That concludes my report. Deputy Mayor, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor McLeod. We'll move back to Planning and Heritage, Councilor Rivard.
I'll just, just wait a second. Just gonna wait a second. Oh,
Just good.
everyone. Exit steps, okay?
Very nice.
I just hope
What's that?
survives. He is
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you, Your Worship. Planning and Heritage Committee met on Monday, February 3rd, 2020. The copy of the Planning and Heritage report are in your binder. I'll try to speak loud. The Planning and Heritage Committee also met in closed session Thursday, February 6th. The Heritage Board met on Monday, January 27th. Again, the copies of the reports are in your package. And Design Review Board did not meet this month. There are 4 resolutions for Council to consider tonight. Before I sit down and take any questions, Your Worship, I just want to add this note. The City of Charlottetown will be celebrating Heritage Day at 12 p.m. noon on Tuesday, February 18th on the second floor of City Hall. The annual event will include an awards ceremony to honor individuals and organizations in the community that have worked hard to preserve and celebrate our city's heritage. The theme of this year's Heritage Day celebrations is bringing the past into the future, and the city's heritage staff have created a historic exhibit entitled Down to Business, the history of Charlottetown's oldest businesses. The display will share the history of some of Charlottetown's oldest still operating companies, whose stories are varied as the services and products they offer. Businesses like Curry's Shoe Repair, which celebrates 117 years in operation this year and began when shoe factory worker Frank Curry struck out on his own to open the Shoe Doctor on Queen Street. Curry Shoe Repair is still thriving 117 years later, with Frank's descendant, David, practicing the art of repairing shoes on the same block.
Wow.
The exhibit will be launched Heritage Day and run until March 23rd in the storefront windows of the Planning and Heritage Department, 233 Queen Street. So after the reward ceremony, the Old Protestant Burying Ground Committee will be offering a screening of the short film directed by Jocelyn Bordeaux entitled The City Underground. The film celebrates the history of the Old Protestant Burying Ground on University Avenue. So please come and join us on Heritage Day and celebrate our city's rich history. Yeah, I think that's it, Your Worship. Anyways, questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Thank you. Councilor Durand.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you, Councillor Vard, for your report. I just have a question there. I was doing a little bit of background. You know, the city has given out close to 400 building permits for single-family residents. These are apartments, duplexes, and single-family homes. The number's around 400, give or take a few. I'm just wondering now, like, if we're in a housing crisis, when does that kind of slow down? Does it go by, you know, vacancy rate, or, you know, I know when developers come in and they look to change maybe zoning, we're asked about, you know, the housing crisis. So I'm just wondering, would you have an answer to a question like that? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duran. I don't think there's a magic number. I think certainly the vacancy rate being low has brought a lot of developers to the table to help, I'll say, build Charlottetown out of the housing crisis that we're in, which again we can see is working, because our vacancy rate has gone from 0.2% in Charlottetown to 1.3%, which I think is great. The amount of starts that are in progress right now that are going to be added to the stock in the spring, summer is in the range of 438, 200 and almost 300 of those consisting of apartments. So, so it's good news, and this doesn't involve any new starts that have already been approved by council for this year. So, so I'm guessing until we get back to a healthy vacancy rate, where individuals all have an affordable place to live, I'm assuming that building will continue at a rapid pace. And I mean, population growth is showing no signs of slowing down either. So, you know, once we get ahead of this curve, we're going to have to build still at I think at a fairly rapid pace to keep up with the population growth. So, I'm not sure if that answers your question, but there's no real magic number to be able to pin and say this is when we're going to stop building. I hope the city continues to grow.
Thank you. Councillor Twill?
Thank you for your report, Councillor Rivard. One of the issues that keeps arising, particularly in the last year or so, is water runoff to adjacent property owners. I've been dealing with 2 or 3 issues now, trying to notify planning department, and it states it quite clearly in the zoning and development bylaw that water runoff onto adjacent properties are prohibited. Okay, it's crystal clear. It's not ambiguous. It's not evasive. Water runoff is supposed to be null and void, and not supposed to negatively impact and affect on your neighbor's property. So, with that in mind, is it safe to say the responsibility is with the staff and the planning department to administer that section of the bylaw, to administer, to enforce, and to notify the offending party that it is truly prohibited when it comes to water runoff onto an adjacent property owner? I know that I'm dealing with a couple of constituents, 2 different parts of the city, and I can tell you that they're extremely frustrated. There's anxiety, there's concern, and they're looking to the city of Charlottetown. They're looking for help. In one particular instance, snow piles and snow piles of snow, and it is affecting the property owner, the adjacent property owner. Sun pump is going all the time. It's affecting their quality of life. Anytime we have weather like we're having tonight, it you know, there's a lot of concern, a lot of anxiety. So I bring that up, and if you could please put that on your next committee's agenda, not only to administer, but to enforce and send that message out, and maybe even a communication strategy along with that. That's the first point I wanted to bring up.
Thank you, Councillor Twill. As part of any development, I mean, we do ask that we have to have a water drainage plan put in place for the development. So, so when it appeases, I guess, planning staff that those, and of course the stamp drawings from the engineer are done, then we have to anticipate that those are good enough. There probably are instances where there is water that runs off for a property. You're right, you can't negatively impact another property with your own runoff. So again, I think we do have measures in place, Alex, between ourselves and with our bylaw officer, I believe. Is that right? Do you want to follow up on that?
Your Worship, we are planning to review that section of the bylaw in 2020. Again, we're using outside consultants to help facilitate that. They're engineers, survey engineers who do up those plans, but all of the whole section of the zoning bylaw dealing with enforcement, we'll look at it all as a part of the 2020 plan.
Assuming we get through budget.
That's a good point.
Assuming, sorry, just 1 second. Just that's assuming that is supported by council at the budget session, because that's going to be in as one of the new initiatives for this year for planning. So again, as Alex had alluded to, we'd like to do it. Just need it to pass through council first. So I don't want to be too premature on that. Just that's the plan, though.
Councillor Twill.
And I think that's all well and good, you know, to have an outside consultant and to look for additional monies in the operational budget, but you cannot negate the fact or ignore the fact that 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 section of the bylaw, I don't have the section in front of me, is clearly illustrated in the zoning and development bylaws. So the message sent to the community that not only administer, but they're looking to the city to enforce your bylaw. Enforce your bylaw regardless of what the section is. So, with all due respect, if you please put that on your next committee's agenda and to send that message out to the community that their property values, their quality of life, all of those things are being protected by the city of Charlottetown. That's the first point I wanted to bring up, and I thank you for bringing up Heritage Days and some of the businesses that you brought up. I think it's a great celebration. But one person that over the years we never seem to talk about and who's contributed a lifetime preservation of heritage in history in this city, his Life and Times was written by a former alderman, Irene Rogers. And I'm not saying that we can do something this year, but I'd like to, maybe your committee could look at over the next year of recognizing Irene Rogers, former alderman who was killed in a car accident while she was in office. The book that she wrote, the author, his Life and Times, she's fantastic. A lot of this was truly a commitment of passion and a real strong conviction. And she stuck to her principles and was always consistent. And it didn't matter who you were, whether it was a big developer or small property owner owned by a newly couple just starting out. So there was none of this double standards or triple standards. She had those principles and that conviction. So the next year or so, if you could please take that under advisement, and maybe we can recognize Irene and maybe name an award after her, or put a day on for the memories of Irene Rogers for the work that she's done for this city. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Councillor Squeal. We'll certainly take it back to the Heritage Committee. And as for the point about the drainage again, I mean, planning staff, if a complaint is made to planning staff, they certainly do follow up. This time of year, I'm sure we can all appreciate that with the amount of snow that's being piled up in the area, it's really hard for planning staff sometimes to determine where the water runoff is coming from because, well, a lot of snow. So if there is any concerns, any complaints, I mean, again, have them forwarded to planning staff, and I'm sure planning staff will follow up with them.
Councillor Bernard.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Varela, I just want to follow up with something Ms. Twill had brought up, or Councillor Twill, and you can get back to me later if you don't have the answer tonight. What you talked about with the water drainage and needing extra money to go into the operational budget, I'm assuming that that's also going to talk about water runoff from construction projects and silt going into the ponds and rivers and so on? Okay. A1. Thank you.
That is correct. Absolutely. Yep.
Thank you. Councillor Durand.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Twill, for bringing that piece up about the snow. I went through this with a resident there a couple of years ago, and I think I called on Councillor Bernard. We were dealing with drains around a church that, you know, all the snow got pushed back to the back, and it was 30 feet high, and then when it melted, it flooded the backyards of the elderly people. So we went through all that, and I was told at that time there was nothing I could do or nothing the city could do. So I'm quite amazed. Is there a bylaw in place that, you know, would limit, you know, the flooding of a person? Like that's a big concern. I mean, every time I see these people, you know, I feel that I let them down. So, you know, if there's something here with planning, I'd be very interested to move it forward as well.
Thank you, Councillor Don. I mean, again, there's two situations here. There's one with general runoff from a homeowner, for instance, that's running water either through their east troughs or whatever into someone else's property. And then there's, of course, the problem of snow removal and piling of snow, and which can really create larger scale issues. That's not really maybe part of maybe what Councillor Twill was alluding to. I think you were alluding to more of a homeowner water from.
That was it,
Okay.
from two angles.
Yeah. So again, I guess the city would have to follow up with Public Works or with the owner of that property to ensure that piling of snow, I guess, will be put somewhere else that may not cause the issue. So I don't have an answer for that one.
Thank you.
Thank you, Worship. I don't want to be the fly in the ointment on this issue, but I've been, for 13 years, been led to believe that when water is running off of one piece of land onto another piece of land, it is a civil situation between those two landowners, and it should go to the courts. The city, in fact, I've had cases in my ward, two or three cases, that I was told by the city here that no, that's between the two homeowners to sort out themselves. And because if we start going onto one situation for this, we'll be flooded, excuse the pun, we'll be flooded with more work than we can shake a stick at. So we better tread carefully, because there's a lot of hills and there's a lot of water, so somebody's getting somebody else's water. So that's the way I've been led to believe.
Okay, thanks. Just to address it, Councillor Duffy's right, to a certain extent. So again, the call would come into the city would look into it. If the homeowner, whoever veered from the engineering plans that were stamped and approved as part of the development, then it would be up to the resident to fix that problem. But if nothing has changed, then you're right, and the city's already approved it, nothing's changed, then it could become a civil issue, correct?
Councillor Wheel?
Thank you, Your Worship. Well, I guess I'm going to have to counter you, Councillor Duffy, with all due respect. I mean, it's illustrated in the section, I don't have the number in front of me, in the zoning and development bylaw. So when plans are being submitted and there's a drainage plan and it's submitted to the residents in the affected area of where the development's taking place, then they're under understanding that water runoff will be effectively and efficiently addressed. I would argue in some cases that's not true. So therefore, the onus is on the developer that's causing this hazard to a neighboring property owner that could, in some cases, there 50 and 60 years. I don't believe it's fair that someone can come in, construct a development, regardless of whether it's a single-family home, duplex, multi-purpose building, and create that negative impact and effect on adjacent property owner. I think there's a responsibility, and it's illustrated, as Councilor Rivard says, in the stamped drawings, and the residents are given a comfort zone that there will be no water runoff. So I believe the city does play an indispensable role in not only administering, but enforcing the bylaw. I mean, that's why we have bylaws. We're there to enforce.
Okay.
Councillor Ver to wrap up the.
Yeah, okay, and this is quite simple. I mean, again, a very good debate, and what I'll do is I'll go back to planning staff, and if it requires us to check with legal counsel as well, but I'll come back next month with a report addressing the scenarios that have been played out tonight. That way everyone has a clear understanding of what the city's obligations are versus that of any kind of civil action, if that's okay.
Okay, seeing no more questions, we can move on.
I do have one more. I just wanted to make sure we're addressing the right thing now, because my understanding is when a property is under construction, there is no bylaw. It's after it's completed and the lawn and so on is completed. But under construction, I think that's what I'm talking about as far as siltation and so on going into the streams and the rivers. That maybe what he's talking about when he mentions construction. So I don't think there's anything while it's under construction. I think that water plan you're talking about in private homes is after the landscape.
Yeah, that was the questions. Thank you, Councilor Bernard. That was the question, but what we're talking about, the study that we're going to do is all encompassing. So
Yes.
it's going to factor into
Yes.
the silt runoff, pre,
Right.
post construction and things of
Right.
that nature. So
Yeah.
that'll all be part of a fairly elaborate, large review, which, like I said, can be quite expensive, but that's the plan.
Right on.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Vard. The first resolution, Mr. Keller.
Request to amend Appendix A, future land use map of the official plan from mature neighborhood to medium density residential, and amend Appendix B, zoning map of the zoning development bylaw from the single detached residential zone to the low density residential zone. For the property located at 213 Kinston Road, PID 385849, in order to convert the existing single detached dwelling into a two-unit dwelling, be approved subject to adhering to the City of Charlottetown Water and Sewer Utility Department's terms and conditions pertaining to the infrastructure servicing as outlined in the planning board minutes dated February 3rd,
question.
Questions called, all in favor?
I'm in favor.
Thank you.
She's here.
That's the ghost.
Oh, sorry, Tom. Go right ahead.
Carried 9-0, thank you.
Your worship, moved by Councilor Barrett, second by Councilor McCabe, that the request to amend Appendix A, future land use map of the official plan from industrial to commercial for the properties located in PID 278895. Amend Appendix G zoning map of the zoning development bylaw from light industrial zone to the mixed-use corridor zone for the properties located at Kinston Road, PID 278895, and consolidate the properties located at Kinston Road, PID 278895, with Lot 19-1 Kinston Road consisting of PID 278754, 278762, and 278770 be approved, subject to the applicant entering into a development agreement that includes provisions as outlined in the planning board's minutes dated February 3rd, 2020.
Thank you. Questions called, all in favor? Sorry.
I was late.
No.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much.
I'm in favor.
Just before you're in favor, just want to say that, you know, I did ask lots of questions on this one, of course, because it's in the area that I'm counsel for, and I just want council to understand too at the same time, that's just a communication piece. I am in favor of this project. We need housing, but I just hope that through the conversation that those things that I had brought up would be taken serious, and that there are concerns, but I think this is a great project, so just let council know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, question called?
Question called.
Okay, motion's carried 9-0. Oh, the next resolution, thanks, Councilor.
Moved by Councilor Barrett, second by Councilor McCabe, that the request to amend Appendix A, future land use map of the official plan from low-density residential to medium-density residential is located at 9 Pine Drive, PID 393322. Amend Appendix G zoning map of the zoning development bylaw from the single detached residential zone to the medium-density residential zone located at 9 Pine Drive, PID 393322, and consolidate 9 Pine Drive, PID 393322, with 11 to 13 Pine Drive, PID 393314, in order to construct a 41-unit apartment dwelling on the consolidated property to be approved to proceed to public consultation.
Any questions? Seeing none, all in favor? Okay, motion is carried 7-1 in favor.
Moved by Councilor Barrett,
Peter?
What was the count? Sorry, Your Worship.
7-1 in favor. Councilor Twill opposed.
the request to consolidate the vacant lot at 152 King Street, PID 336024, with a portion of 21 to 23 Prince Street, PID 326008, in order to construct a residential apartment building at 152 King Street, to be approved subject to the terms and conditions as outlined in the planning board minutes dated February 3rd, 2020.
Question.
Question called.
Questions called, all in favor?
In favor.
Motion carried. 9-0.
My new math.
To adopt bylaw P8Z2.2024, a bylaw to amend the zoning and development bylaw to rezone the property at 213 Kensington Road, PID 385849, from single detached residential zone to the low-density residential zone. Be resolved that the bylaw to amend the City of Charlottetown zoning and development bylaw P8Z2.2024 as it pertains to 213 Kensington Road, PID 385849, as attached, be read for a first time. Moved by Councillor Barrett, second by Councillor McCabe.
Shall pass?
Pass.
Opposed? Okay.
Be resolved that the zoning and development amendment bylaw P8Z2.2024 be approved and that it be read a second time at the next regular meeting of council. Moved by Councillor Barrett, second by Councillor McCabe.
Shall pass?
Pass.
Adopt bylaw P8Z2.2025, a bylaw to amend the zoning and development bylaw to rezone the properties at Kensington Road, PID 278895, from light industrial zone to the mixed use corridor zone. Be resolved that the bylaw to amend the City of Charlottetown zoning and development bylaw P8Z2.2025 as it pertains to the properties located at Kensington Road, PID 278895, as attached to be read for the first time. Moved by Councillor Burke, second by Councillor McCabe.
Shall pass?
Pass.
Opposed?
Be resolved that the zoning development bylaw P8Z2.2025 be approved and that it be read a second time at the next regular meeting of council. Moved by Councillor Barrett, second by Councillor McCabe.
Shall pass?
Pass.
To adopt bylaw P8Z2.2023, a bylaw to amend the zoning and development bylaw to amend sections of the zoning and development bylaw P8Z2.2 pertaining to appendix A definition. Whereas the bylaw to amend the City of Charlottetown zoning and development bylaw P8Z2.2023 as it pertains to the zoning and development amendments as attached was read and approved at the first time on January 13th, 2020. Be resolved that the said bylaw be read a second time. Moved by Councillor Barrett, second by Councillor McCabe.
Shall pass?
Pass.
Be resolved that the said bylaw be approved and adopted. Moved by Councillor Barrett, second by Councillor McCabe.
Shall pass?
Pass.
Does that conclude your report, Councillor Rivera?
Sure does.
Move on to economic development, Councillor Ramsey.
Thank you, Your Worship. Economic Development, Tourism, and Event Management met February 3rd. The draft minutes are in your package. The Charlottetown Arts Advisory Board met January 14th. The minutes are also in your package. We have one resolution, Your Worship, and if there's any questions, I'll certainly entertain them. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no questions, one resolution?
Yes, I do, sir.
Thank you.
Your Worship, moved by Councillor Ramsey, second by Councillor Cloud, that the council adopt the amended event guidelines as attached in order to accommodate sustainability efforts.
Seeing no questions. All in favor?
Question.
Oh,
In favor.
okay, sorry. Councillor Twill?
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor Ramsey. I went through the policy, and I apologize if I missed it, but is there a section dedicated or illustrated in this document which prohibits smoking, whether it's cigarettes or marijuana, at events that are being held in our city? We are, when it comes to our parks, any one of our parks venues, smoking is prohibited. And I recall bringing this up at the committee level to ensure that it is illustrated in the document. So if it's there and I don't see it, I apologize.
We're gonna head up with that one. Laurel? Yes, if you don't mind, Councilor Twill, I'll get Laurel Lee,
Yeah, that's
tourism
fine.
officer.
Yeah, I
yes.
can check because Wayne is with the mayor. It's not spelled out in an entire section because it is covered under Parks and Recreation under the venue use agreements. So when an event organizer signs a contract with Parks and Recreation for a city park to use as a venue for their event, they are being listed in that venues are smoke-free. I believe that there is one qualifying sentence in the guidelines that do say that city venues are smoke-free.
Says it here?
I believe so, yes.
Can you please point it out for me?
I don't have a copy of it.
You don't have a copy? Well,
I'm not sure if it really matters. If it's under Parks and Recreation, it'd be under Parks and Recreation responsibility. I'm not sure if this is sustainability.
well,
Councilor Cruz?
Councilor Ramsey,
Yes, sir.
as you can recall, when we discussed it at the committee level, right? I indicated that it should be stated in the document, even though Parks and Recreation, under normal circumstances, it's in our policy, bylaw, more specifically, smoking is prohibited. I did indicate that it'd be prudent to have it illustrated in the document so that any event organizer knows up front, and it's stated right in the policy. I believe it would be advantageous. What section?
Councillor Twill, if you look under event approvals and requests for city equipment, which is on page 3 of the document, sorry, page 2, there's one that says, street closures and/or trails, parks, and/or city venue use. Do you see that bullet point?
Yep.
And then the last sentence says, please note that smoking is not permitted at any city-owned properties.
Yep.
All right.
Find it, Councillor Twill?
Yeah, I just wish it was more
Yeah, okay.
pronounced
Yeah.
and maybe a section on its own, but we can make that amendment. We can make
Yeah,
that
we'll
amendment.
certainly, we certainly take it back to our next meeting and I'm gonna have a further discussion on it and make it more viable for people.
Yeah,
You know, so,
right, italics.
yeah,
you know.
but there's for the word too, okay, thank you.
No, I just gonna say, I'm not sure if you want his committee to start to police it. Like, this is just in there as, you know, so you know there's no parking allowed in the parks or the trails. They're just letting people know that there's no parking, it's not permitted in the city-owned properties. We know that because it's under the Parks and Rec guidelines, bylaws. So, I'm not sure what you're asking for here.
Here's what I'm asking. When an event organizer walks into City Hall and asks for a copy of the policy, they know up front, it's illustrated, all the different conditions, terms and conditions of what's required in order to host an event in our city, particularly when you're gonna use our venues. So you know right up front, here's the policy, or here's the bylaw, and it states it unequivocally. That's,
So when they're booking one of our parks, do they not get your policy under what's allowed, what's not
I'll
allowed?
tell you what, there's been a lot of violations here in the last 2 or 3 years.
No, but that's not what I asked.
Yeah,
Whenever they book one of the parks,
yeah.
is there not a policy that goes in when they book the park, what they have to do?
Yeah.
What they're allowed and not allowed?
But we're talking specific events.
That's so mine. So mine. Like anytime you would book a park,
Yeah.
I'm assuming that Parks and Rec management
Yeah, they're involved.
would have a policy, guidelines
Bylaw.
to be followed.
Yeah.
And it's in there.
It's not being
That's all I'm
practiced, so anyway, I brought it up as you.
Yeah, certainly, thank you.
Okay, Councilor McLeod.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kevin, for your report. Just to, just looking at the information here that Laura specifically asked, just before the liquor commission approvals, it does say it is important to note that detailed plans will have to be submitted directly to the police and fire department. So we're already doing those things. I know Councilor Trio would like to have it highlighted, and I don't think there's an issue with that, but you know, like any other event, it has to go through fire and police. So I think, you know, it's important that the vendor does understand that they have to adhere to our bylaws.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no further questions, all in favor?
In favor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, motion's carried 9-0, thank you. Does that conclude your
Yes,
report?
yes, sir, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to strategic priorities and Councillor Yankoff.
Can everybody hear me okay?
Yep.
Great, thank you. So the Strategic Priorities and Intergovernmental Cooperation Committee met both on January 23rd and the 28th. Minutes are included in your package, and we don't have any resolutions for your consideration today, and I'll do my best to answer any questions if you have any. Thank you.
Councilor Durand.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Councillor Jankoff. I just have a question on Saturday's paper. It was released that we have put in $165,000 for fire design for the new firehouse, and that we determined that it was going on, I think it's our property on Malpeck Road. You know, I've been asking for the last number of months for an update, and, you know, I was kind of caught off guard that we agreed to that. I'm happy that we're putting the design in. I'm just wondering now, we have that money for the budget. I'm just asking if the full-time and the volunteers will be consulted during the design phase here. And if there's any other updates, you know, I'd appreciate, you know, we'd be given an email or something before something's released, if that would be okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Drawn. Yeah, I think Councillor Bernard perhaps could correct me if I'm speaking incorrectly here, but that money was allocated in the budget so that as the process goes along, we will already have the money set aside for the design phase of the new fire station. Councillor Bernard, is there anything else you can add to that for me?
Not really. I guess it was in the paper because obviously the capital budget had been passed and the media was asking a number of things, and one of them was the fire station and the $165,000 that was in there for design. So, you know, once the fire department moves on that, it will be the chief of actually, Councillor Duran, your department. It'd be the chief that would be consulting with whoever he feels he needs to consult with to come up with the proper design. So, other than that, Councillor Yankoff, no, I think you covered it off.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. The only thing I may add is one of the things that we did as a committee was we went over to tour the Moncton Avenue Center. Our consultants invited over to set up meetings with the city officials and the company that's running the facility. It was pretty interesting to see the facility, see how well it runs. We had a lot of questions for them as far as what constraints, what issues they would have had to get their building up off the ground. One of the things was that come up was where we hear that the multi-purpose or sports entertainment facilities, it doesn't get funding because of a pro team or a semi-pro team. The city of Moncton at the time, they were told the same thing. The city of Moncton came back and said, we're not building it for a pro team. We're not building it for a semi-pro team. We have those teams and contracts in the Moncton Coliseum. That's the very same thing as the city of Charlottetown. We have a junior team that plays out of the Eastlink Center. They have a contract to do that. We have a basketball team that plays out of the Eastlink Center. For someone to say that we're building it for semi-pro or pro, it's just not right. So the federal government ended up giving them $20 million towards the construction of their facility. So it was, the tour was very good. There's a lot of really good information that came out of that. So, and I think it's important for council to know that, you know, just because one person up in Ottawa just says you're building for pro team, no funding. No, that's what they told Moncton too. And so, and as you know now, we have the documents they gave us that the federal government put $20 million into that facility to help it happen, and I believe the province put in $19 million. So, just to let everybody know.
Thank you. Does that conclude your report, Councillor Yankoff?
Yes, thank you.
I do have a question.
Sorry.
I'm a little late.
Councillor McLeod has a question.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Councillor Yankoff, for your report. Just to clarify, so this is for Station 3, not Station 2, right? That we're doing the design for. I just want to make sure that everybody was aware of that. Okay, good. Thank you. I'm on the right page. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we'll move on to finance, audit, and tendering, and that's Councillor Bernard.
Thank you, Worship. Your worship, Finance Audit Accounting met on, we met a number of times. February 4th was the last one. Your worship, I guess as we wind down the 19 and 20 operational budget, we do remain on target. The finances are in your package. With the 2021 capital budget passed, obviously we're moving off now to doing our operational for 2021. I understand there's a number of committees that are doing it now or have already passed it in, so that's good. I do want to say thank you to the chairs and the management, your worship, because a lot went into the capital budget. We had a lot of good cooperation, a lot of good conversation. So now that we move into operational, hopefully be the same. We look for the cooperation from the chairs and again, management. And like I say, the first one went through fairly smoothly, and so we'll be looking for the same for the operational budget. So again, thank you very much, everybody, for their cooperation on the capital. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Giroux.
Thank you, Worship. Thank you, Councillor Bernard, for your report and for all your work on the budget. I just have two questions. First question, you know, when we were going over the capital budget there were a number of items that were, let's say, carryovers. So I never did get the chance to sit down. You know, if we passed something last year and it was in the budget, and then we put another budget in this year and it's put in again, you know, if that money was already allotted, you know, is it in the same line, or, you know, is it included in that budget? I just didn't do all the numbers or calculate them myself. So I'm just wondering if you can clarify on the carryovers. I don't know if I'm making myself clear.
I think I know what you're asking. So if we have $250,000 in for a project in the 1920 budget, and that project never got completed, that money's carried over.
Okay.
So council gave approval to do that particular project. So if it was $250,000, that $250,000 from 1920 is carried over to the 2021 season. It's not another new borrow of $250,000. It's carried over.
Okay. So let's just say, like, for one instance, the exhaust for Station 2 is about $175,000. We passed that in the 219 budget, and then it was in this year's budget as a carryover. We discussed that, and I was well aware of it. But I'm just thinking, do we pass it in 19 budget, and then in this budget again? You know, it just, you know, I know it's a carryover that the work wasn't done, but are we budgeting 2 times for it, or just once?
No. It never got done in the 1920 season, so it's into the 2021 budget, but it's a carryover. You're not borrowing more money. So
Okay.
we just approve the same money again.
Okay.
Like Councilor John, it's not in the bottom figure. I guess that's what you want to know. So the new borrowing and the carryover, the new borrowing wouldn't, you're not borrowing against the carryover.
Okay. So that number, that say 25 million, that 175 wouldn't be included in that, would it?
It would be included, but it's a carryover to make that number what it is. But you're not borrowing from the bank that money again. You're carrying it over.
Okay. Okay. That's a good explanation. I just wasn't sure what the plan was, but that's great. The only other question I have is you know, I touched on it with the advisory committee there a month or two ago, and I touched on it last year. It's just a quick question on the travel expenses for the mayor and council. You know, I get on the website and it's partial there for this year, partial there for last year. Well, actually, last year was pretty good. It was right there, but I can't find the other years. You know, I was on the finance committee when this term started, and we were laying out the groundwork, which I thought was like $5,000 for every chair, and if you wanted to attend a conference with that budget, then that's what it was for. You know, upon looking at the numbers now, it seems like in 2018 we had 54,000, and now we're at 96. So this is getting close to being double. I'm just wondering if your department can kind of make a policy or a limit on what our travel. I mean, I know it's nice to go for a conference and help educate yourself, especially, you know, dealing with new committees and that. But you know, when I look at these numbers, I just keep thinking, well, you know, there's got to be a limit here. You know, different councillors have different extra, you know, committees that are on. Councillor Tweels, you know, he's on the FCM or the National Board, and I understand that. But what I'm saying is for a general councillor's travel, you know, there might be a reason why they need a little more for a, you know, a conference fee, you know, which I can understand. But it just seems that we're seeming to be, you know, steamrolling this too much. And I was just asking your committee if we can get a policy in place for that. Thank you.
Yeah, we can, and that's why we looked at it last year. And, you know, during the operational budget, we'll certainly look at it again. But that's why we put in a certain set amount. And again, that doesn't mean that when a councillor goes somewhere for a conference, as I believe Councillor McLeod had mentioned last month to you, that someone doesn't ask him to take their place at another conference. And that would go on their, that would go on their records for travel and travel expenses, but it would come out of an appropriate account that was budgeted for.
Thank you.
Does that conclude your report, Councillor Bernard?
It does.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. We'll move on to Human Resource and Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Human Resources, Communications and Administration Committee last met on January the 15th. The minutes are in your package. There is one resolution for consideration tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Durand?
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for your report, Councillor McCabe. I'm just asking a quick question on, you know, I was looking up procedural bylaws, and I think that falls under your committee. And then the MGA, and I asked questions there today. You know, the MGA doesn't always meet with our procedural bylaw. And there's a couple of instances that, you know, they're quite different. One is setting, I asked the other day at a meeting, setting the special meetings. The MGA is different than the procedural bylaw. So I'm just wondering, like, I was told today that the MGA overrides our bylaws. Do you feel like is that the cause, or?
That's the law.
That's the law. So that's why I'm saying that, you know, when I look up the procedural bylaw, and I think I have an answer, and then someone says, well, no, the MGA is different. I'm wondering, you know, what are we doing here, I guess, or where are we going? In some of these instances, I guess, like, I'm asking maybe your committee to look at that, to make sure that it kind of, they're both running down the same set of tracks.
Councillor McCabe, if I could introduce, that may fall under the Council Advisory Committee in terms of reference,
Yes.
I think. Yeah. So,
But I was just going to answer my interpretation of what he was asking, but
Okay.
that's fine.
Yeah, no,
My understanding, and I could be looking for clarification as well, is that Municipal Government Act is a provincial act for all municipalities to follow. Within that, we create our own procedural bylaw for the city of Charlottetown that's supposed to kind of underrepresent what the Municipal Government Act would be, is my understanding, but I could be wrong. So it would be great to have clarification on that.
yeah, no.
Yeah,
go
no,
ahead.
I appreciate that, because I was trying to find the answers to these questions, and I couldn't find it, and I go on the website, and I look for the advisory terms of reference, and then I look in our book for terms of reference. I can't find it. So that's why I was, you know, I came here, you know, asking for the question, and you answered it quite well, so thank you.
Okay. Councillor McLeod?
Good, thank you very much, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, so Councillor Drawn will put that on our agenda, I think we're going to be meeting here very shortly, and just so that some interpretations of it all is the provinces realize that not everything has been kosher. Some of the bigger municipalities like Summerside and Charlotte have a few other issues that some of the smaller ones don't. And so I think somewhere around this fall, I believe the province hopes to gather all this information from all the municipalities and change some of these things. So I'll definitely put your concern on the agenda and have it scheduled for discussion through Atlantis as well with the government as we move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so seeing no further questions, we can move on to the resolution.
Move
moved by Councilor McCabe, second by Councilor Duffy, that the city of Charlottetown accepts the amendment to the visual identity policy as per the attached document, effective December 14, 2015, and amended February 10th, 2020, and the council authorized communication of updated visual identity and traffic standard times to align with the policy.
Okay. Seeing no questions, all in favor? Okay, motion's carried 9-0. Thank you. Does that conclude your report,
Yes,
Councilor
thank
McCabe? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Parks and Rec and Councilor Tweel.
Thank you. Thank you, Worship, members of City Council. Want to welcome Christopher Drummond, who's pitch hitting for our manager, Frank Quinn. Welcome, Christopher. As our usual procedure, volunteer of the month. As chair of Parks, Recreation, and Leisure Activities Committee, I'm pleased to announce Christine DePratt as our volunteer of the month for February. Christine has been involved with the Charlottetown Bluefin Aquatic Club for the past 4.5 years. Her role with the club was vice president. She now holds the role as president. Outside of her role as a board member, Christine is also a level 3 official, officiates at on-island and off-island swim meets. She is currently working towards her level 5 certification as an official for Swim Canada. Christine is a co-meet manager and works together with another volunteer organizing all swim meets. This is a role she's held for the past 3 years. She finds time to assist the club with coaching 9 to 12-year-old swimmers 3 days a week. Also supports the other coaches when needed. Christine has also assisted with the Wiseman's Food Drive and was a board member of the Soccer PEI. In the past has managed a couple of provincial soccer teams. Please join with me in congratulating Christine on her recognition as February's Volunteer of the Month. In December, I had the privilege and honor to represent City Council to accept an award from the PEI Council of the Disabled, Disabilities Access Award. And the City of Charlottetown, through Parks and Recreation, received recognition for the inclusive of building boundless playground, a beautiful accessible playground in Victoria Park, initiative and a commitment on behalf of the Canadian Tire $1 million playground, which is pretty much operational all year round. You'll see people there. It really picks up steam in May and just keeps going. A great initiative. And of course, the ever popular floating accessible dock. Very popular. I can tell you that during the peak times of the summer, no less than maybe 350 people visited our dock on a daily basis. So what I'd like to do is just pass this around. And once again, this is City Council, City Hall, and particular Parks and Recreations Award. I just happen to have the privilege and the honor to be there to accept it. Pass it around. I do want to bring council up to date on our outdoor rinks. 12 rinks are operational. I don't know what tonight brings in terms of our outdoor rinks, but I can tell you that our Parks and Recreation staff, the 2 shifts that are going, I believe, 6 days a week, are doing a fantastic job. So I do want to acknowledge our staff and their dedication and their diligence. We got a great staff in Parks and Recreation, and I can say that the Parks and Recreation staff is one of the best Parks and Recreation departments in Canada. The next item I'd like to bring up is, as you know, I brought up the issue of the old Prince Edward Island property, hospital site. Last month I read out the resolution. I'd like to read that resolution again. The City Council supports Parks and Recreation Leisure Activities Committee's recommendation that the old Prince Edward Island property be earmarked for green space parkland by the province of Prince Edward Island at such time when the facility has been removed from the site. I want you all all members of council know that I've been receiving phone calls regarding clarity on what's taking place with the site. We're getting mixed messages, not sure why that is. I know that talks are ongoing with the province. I've not been involved with those discussions, but it's quite clear from the resolution that that property is to remain green in its entirety. We did not talk about parking. We did not talk about temporary parking. We did not talk about parking at all. So I think it's important that City Council sticks to the spirit of this resolution and sends an unequivocal message to the province that we would like them to work with us and to keep this property entirely green. And I'll even go a bit further, that someday, when the Arsenal building comes down, that be converted into green space as well. So I believe now is the time to be proactive, to be visionary, and to send a message out to the community that that is what their council is aiming for. So I'm not sure where it goes from here, but I can tell you that this is a real concern. I have received phone calls. There's confusion in the community. There's a lot of confusion, and they were very pleased when we brought this resolution in last February. Very pleased with council's initiative. So I just wanted to bring that to the forefront.
Okay, thank you. I know there's two buttons hit, and I'm not sure who hit it first. There was two requests to speak. Councillor Bernard.
I was just going to let Councillor Twill know. I know Councillor Yankoff had met with the government over that particular issue through her committee, Intergovernmental Affairs. And if memory serves me right, the government had no intentions of putting more parking in. I think the government's intention was they're talking to some community groups. There's one that came out that wanted to put some money into it to make it gardens and green space and so on. So my understanding is that they have no plans or anything to build a building there and make more parking there. As a matter of fact, my understanding is they want to reduce parking. So they're working on some provincial initiatives to reduce a lot of the parking coming into their parking areas. But as far as this particular green space, my understanding is that they want to prepare it because it's their property. And then when it's prepared, once you have all the gardens in it and the plan is done, then they'll hand it off to Parks and Recreation, as with Victoria Park, to be the caretakers. I mean, we all know the province owns Victoria Park. They own it. It's Crown land. And it was signed over to the city to be the caretakers. We don't hold a deed to it. Same as this particular property. We don't hold a deed to it. So my understanding is that they have a plan that they would like to put place. And when they're done with that plan, it does require, they are looking at green space. They are looking at shrubs and flowers and gardens and the whole thing, trails, walkways, when they're done. And they will work in consultation with the city. So they're not going to hide anything from us. Once they have a plan up, they'll get a hold of Councillor Yankoff, and they'll bring her in to invite her, and she'll probably bring that back to all of council to see. So.
Councillor Twill.
Well, thank you for your response, Councillor Bernard, but I want you to know that there's a lot of confusion in the community about parking. I went down myself, and I saw where the parking lot was expanded behind the Arsenal building. That parking lot has expanded, and I'm not sure what's taking place on the land where they remediated where the actual building was. And with regards to community groups, I think if you look at the Parks and Recreation terms of reference, one of the bullets is to oversee the planning, development of adequate supply and distribution of recreational facilities and parklands. Parks and Recreation...
Of parklands that the city owns, not the province owns.
But the thing is, if it's going to be turned over to the city, I believe that the city should be in on the ground floor. Our professional staff, your Parks and Recreation Committee should be in on the ground floor to collaborate and to work with to work with the province, because if we're gonna be doing the maintenance, we need to be in on the ground floor in terms of carving out what the vision is, what the plan is, what the operation is, what the understanding is gonna be, memorandum of understanding, all of those prerequisites. So, I can tell you that we're not involved. And from Parks and Recreation perspective, and I can tell you that there's a lot of questions in the community. A lot of questions in the community, and I cannot honestly answer them. So I said I would bring it up again. We did our due diligence a year ago to bring in the resolution, and if there's discussions going on with the city, Parks and Recreation is not involved, and I would suggest Parks and Recreation should be in on the ground floor.
Yeah, I think, Councillor,
Sorry.
it's not the city's property. And I know you'd like to dive in, and I know you'd like to give your opinions on how things should be done, but it's not our call. It's the province's call. The province has said that when they put their plan together, that they will consult. So, I take them at their word at it. If you've got people that are questioning you if they're gonna put parking or building, get them to call the province. The province owns it. We don't. And right now, it's an intergovernmental affairs issue. So until that gets worked out, they're saying that they have no plans of building anything. They say it's going to be green space. They say that when they have a plan put together, they're going to unveil it to the city. They want to work with us. So you take them at their word. So I mean, if anybody's got questions, then I would suggest calling the province because they own the land.
Okay, Councillor Twill.
Well, again, I'll just reiterate, if we're gonna be taking over the responsibility of the property in question, then we should be involved from day one. We should be involved with those discussions in regarding.
But when they have a plan, we will be. They have no plan yet. When they have a plan, they will be.
So there's no plan?
Well, not that I'm aware of. They said that they
So
would bring
did
us
they
in when there was
Did
a...
they meet with community groups, or
They will.
is there different concepts being discussed?
They will be.
Okay, so we're gonna be involved. That's all I'm asking. We're gonna be involved?
We had a community group come in to see us,
Yeah.
and we told them that it wasn't our property to see the province. So they have been in to see the province, and I think the province wants to talk to some other community groups. So when they have a plan together, they said they will bring us in to consult also. So that's all I can tell you. And I take them at their word. They're telling us that we're not looking for more parking. Matter of fact, we're looking to eliminate parking. But that will be a green space is their plan. Now, if anything changes, I'm sure they'll let us know. But Councillor Yankov she had met with the minister. Those were the messages that were told us. So I have no reason to think that they wouldn't be doing the plan they told us they would be. And I have no reason to think that we wouldn't be consulted when they're ready to consult us.
Well, you said we're gonna be consulted before any concepts are approved. I'll wait and see.
Okay.
Okay. We'll move on to the Parks and Rec resolution. Mr. Kelly.
There is none.
Yep. Both of them? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. We'll move on to Protective and Emergency Services. Councillor Durand.
Thank you, Worship. The Protective and Emergency Services Committee met on January 27, 2020, and the minutes are included. There's two resolutions for your consideration. Just a quick shout out to a couple of the departments that are doing some great community work. The annual Christmas parade, the fire department, this year, Station 2, won the Best Decorated Fire Truck Award, and they won $50 for that, and they donated to the Food Bank of Charlottetown. We have some new recruits. Level 1, Curtis J. has started as volunteer firefighting with District 1, and 6 other recruits have been fully engaged in Level 1 training at the fire school, which started on January the 6th. Our provincial firefighters also won the curling for this year. The Charlottetown Fire Department curling team, consisting of Winston Bryan, Mike McRae, William Callbeck, and Alan Brown. They're advancing to the Nationals here. They're going to be held in Charlottetown, March 26th to April 4th. And on the policing side, there was a number of members took part in the turkey drive on December 10th Constable Collins was a great promoter of that. Also, I'd like to say our Deputy Chief, Sean Coombs, is presently attending the FBI Academy Leadership Training in Virginia, and the training will be completed in mid-March. I'm sure he'll come back with lots of new ideas. And operational as well, planning is underway for the Jack Frost,
Winter Carnival?
Carnival, yes. And it pertains to traffic and other related duties, so they've been busy at that, trying to organize that. Anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them as best I can. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Your Worship. Councillor Drong, thank you very much for your report. Councillor Drong, I, as well as other councillors in this room, receive a lot of complaints and issues, concerns with traffic in our ward, the speeding especially. I have a small ward, and therefore geographically it's small. We have a lot of pedestrians. The kids walk to school. The kids walk to Victoria Park. There's 5 schools in the area. There's 3 elementary schools. There's a junior high, and there's a senior high. There's a rink. There's a pool. So, and it's, like I say, it's a very small area, and so there's a lot of elderly folks walking down to the park during the day. The kids are walking to school. So when I was looking at the police report, and I don't know what's going on here, and I'm not criticizing the police. I just look at an answer on the speeding throughout the wards. I noticed the report for the month of January with 31 days in it. We apprehended or cited 7 people for speeding. That's pretty low. Like, we have 10 police cars. We have, round-the-clock service for 31 days, and we only have 4 cites and 7 charges. So, but the good news is, there's always good news to every story. Out of the 7, 4 of them were in my ward, so I get more than 50% of the tickets issued for that month. Can you check out and see what was going on for the month of January with the police department? It's really low. Thank you.
Definitely, I'll check that, and I'm sure that's a typo of some sort, but I'll check with the chief for tomorrow and get back to you tomorrow. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Twill.
Thank you for your report, Chair DeRon. As you know, one of the issues I've been bringing up consistently over the years has been drug usage in the city of Charlottetown. Could be drug houses, crack houses, drugs being sold in the neighborhoods through different venues. What I'm asking you for is, in the last couple of months, can you tell me how many raids or how many people have been charged with selling drugs and negatively affecting the neighborhoods in this city?
Thank you, Councillor Twill. I don't have those statistics right off my hand, and I don't know if I can give them to you. I'll certainly, just like I said to Councillor Duffy, I'll check with the police personnel tomorrow to see if we can get any numbers on that. I know our last committee meeting, we spent a lot of time discussing drugs and speeding and different intersections and different roads that the councillors brought to our attention. So I'm sure I could get a number for you if I'm allowed to release that, and get back to you as soon as I can tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor DeRon. Those are criminal activities in the community. Would like to be informed as to what's taking place in terms of drugs being sold, drug usage, and how it's affecting the neighborhoods. They're looking for action, and they want action, and they want to be notified of that action. So hopefully we can have that illustrated in the police report on a monthly basis. I have a couple of requests. One is with the 2 police officers in our respective schools. Could we get a report from the 2 police officers who are in the schools, an in-depth report as to what's taking place on a monthly basis? My second request is like a copy of the memorandum of understanding with the RCMP. And we can get that information forward to all members of council to see what initiatives and what programs we're involved with the RCMP and which ones we're not. So I'd like to get that information as well, as we can become more informed as to what we're doing, what the RCMP is doing, and vice versa, and what the joint initiatives are. I think we as a council should become more informed, but please stress to the department, the drug usage in the city is out of control, and I can tell you our neighborhoods are being negatively affected by it, and I'll go on the record saying that particularly my constituency, I want them to have the same quality of life that they would have in Brighton or Lewis Point Park. I want my residents to have the same quality of life, and we won't settle for anything less.
Thank you, Councillor Tweel. You know, I certainly think that all councillors want a safe community. They want the residents safe. And, you know, I think you put something forward here in new business. I talk to the chief there on an almost daily basis. And, you know, I think, you know, you correlate this with, you know, building permits, more people coming into the city, more people living in big, huge apartment buildings. You know, all these throw it into the pot, right?
Yeah.
So at this point in time, we're coming forward with an operational budget that I hope to, you know, put forward, you know, a good showing to council to say that, you know, we probably need some more policemen to help us out. You know, the police force are working hard. They can't do everything. The city's growing in leaps and bounds, and that's a good thing. So maybe, you know, in council's wisdom, we'll sit here and we'll decide to bump the numbers up and see what we can do. So, you know, I take everything down that you're saying. The chief is busy writing, so it's going to be a busy day tomorrow to get everything back to everybody, but we'll see what we can do.
Okay, Councillor Tweel.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Brown, you talked about councillors traveling. I'd like to make a recommendation for you and your vice chair. I'm not sure who that is. Is that you, Councillor Duffy? No, Mr. Ramsey. Maybe attend Chief of Police Conference to go up, see what's taking place. What are the new contemporary initiatives that are being advanced by the chiefs of police? I think you as the chair of police committee, protective service, and Mr. Ramsey should attend that conference and get out and see what's taking place across this country and some of the new techniques and the new technology and the new methodology and all those things, and bring them back. So maybe we can utilize those initiatives and those resources to make our neighborhoods a lot safer. Thank you, sir.
Well, that's a great idea. I brought it up with the travel. I'm not looking to expand that budget, so I'll certainly ask the chief if he could do a summary for me, and maybe I could share it with you when he comes back. You know, I'm presently on a board there of training for police officers for the province. So, you know, I attend those meetings, and I get to sit with the RCMP and chiefs and get a lot of knowledge from them as well. So, thank you for your comments, but I'll see what we can do.
Okay, Councillor McCabe.
I just wanted to follow up to the police in the schools, because I'll be interested if they can come in and give you a great presentation, but just to put a plug in for them about the invaluable service. Schools are kind of in their own community, and it's right. Many of your residents would attend the Colonel Gray family of schools who do have access to a school resource officer, and the work they do, lots, preventative stuff. Your community cleans up as a result. They're involved, they're on the day-to-day collaboration to make sure that things are rolling and moving, and again, I just need to put a plug in that those positions are invaluable.
I understand that. That's why I recommended it a few years ago. But I think it's important that we get a monthly report so we can look over some of the initiatives that they're working with, the collaboration with the student body, teachers, faculty, community, all of those things.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, Julie.
First resolution, Mr. Kelly.
I die without my police officer.
Vietnamese cuisine restaurant, 177 Queen Street, PID 340190. Approved at the end of the 2021 season, subject to an annual permit application, and the mayor and CEO hereby authorized to enter standing contract agreements to implement this resolution.
Okay, seeing no questions. All in favor?
Oh, she's still there.
Okay, motion's carried 9-0. Thank you.
Moved by Councilor Braun, moved by Councilor Langley, that the request to change the current development and purchase agreement for outdoor patios from 2 perpendicular angled parking spaces in front of Fish and Chips, 141 Great George Street, PID 342-360, to 3 perpendicular parking spaces in front of Fish and Chips, be approved at the end of 2021 season, subject to the annual permit application, and that the mayor and CEO are authorized to execute standard permit use.
Thank you.
Question called.
Questions called. All in favor? Okay. Motion's carried 9-0. Thank you. Does that conclude your report, Councillor Drawn?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
We'll move on to water and sewer. Councillor McCabe is going to help us out here.
Yes. So the Water and Sewer Utility Committee met on the 21st of January. The minutes are in your package. We do have 3 resolutions for consideration. Any questions? We'll do our best to answer them.
Thank you.
Just a quick question.
Councillor Drawn, yeah.
Thank you, Councilman Quaid. I didn't get to the last meeting, but I just have a quick question. Someone called me today about doing the taxes, and they're saying, does the city charge HST for services? And I said, no, I don't think so. I said, could you ask a question? I think I may have been charged at one time for services. I don't think it's on the water, like your water bill, because I checked mine and it wasn't. But I think it was services that if they were hooking up a water line or something like that, that we'd be charged. And I said, I don't think so, but I'll just ask it tonight to one of us here to see if we could look into that.
Okay.
So one of us probably should. We're all on the committee, chair,
Yep.
vice chair.
We can ask Mr. McEwen if he has anything to add, or we can get that answer back to you. Okay.
We'll get it.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, we can move on to the first resolution. Mr. Kelly?
Your worship, moved by Councilor Drawn, second by Councilor Page, whereas the city of Charlottetown passed a policy resolution in April 10th, 2000, that the city council confirmed its policy not to entertain applications for water service or properties outside the municipal boundary of the city of Charlottetown without first receiving approval from the city council to do so. And that the city council approves the request for water services for 484 and 488 Grafton Park Road. The request is for water servicing for 2 existing properties within the rural municipality of Brackley, and that the costs associated with the servicing be paid by the owners, and further that the services be billed with a 25% premium as a surcharge for the services provided outside the city of Charlottetown municipality.
Thank you. Councillor Drawn? Oh, sorry. I thought you had your button to speak.
No, sorry.
Okay, sorry.
It's flashing there, so maybe it wasn't cleared. Sorry.
Okay. Questions called. All in favor? Okay, motion's carried 9-0. Thank you.
Talk to her, Richard.
Moved by Councilor Braun, second by Councilor Page, that the city of Charlottetown accepts the proposal for engineering services from CBCL in the amount estimated at $422,292, tax included, for the second phase of upgrades of the Charlottetown Pollution Control Plant, and that this be expected in utility capital budgets, and further that the mayor and CEO are hereby authorized to execute standard agreements to implement this resolution.
Okay. Seeing no questions, all in favor? Councilor.
I vote Jason.
Motion's carried 9-0. Thank you.
Motion by Councilor Page, second by Councilor Braun, that the Precision Mechanical Incorporated be awarded the tender for the Milton Vale Wellfield Phase 2A TRV upgrades in the amount of $80,270, HST included, that the Coles Associates complete the engineering project on site in the amount of $9,890, HST included, and further that the mayor and CEO are hereby authorized to execute standard
question.
Question called. All in favor? Okay, motion's carried 9-0. Thank you. That concludes the report.
Yeah, excuse me just for a minute.
Thank you. Move on to Public Works and Urban and Beautification, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you, Your Worship. The Public Works Committee, Urban Beautification Committee met on January 22nd. We had the Civic Board for Persons with Disabilities. They passed in their terms of reference, which the committee reviewed, and there's extended congratulations to them. There's a copy of those in your package for your review. They did a very thorough job on that particular document. Another issue that we covered off on January 22 was talked about major intersections, and we, with an intent to review and upgrade two particular intersections, one at Capitol Drive and University Avenue, and the second at Capitol Drive and North River Road. The intent of the discussion at that time, back in January, was to, bearing in mind that we, and most people will notice that we're suffering with a lot of traffic at peak times from people coming into the city and people leaving the city. Mr. Adams had pointed out to us that there's three major reasons for this increase in traffic in the last short bit of time. There's been a 2.2% increase in our population, the provincial population. There's also the fact that we have more tourists visiting the island, and we also have more people living outside the city but working within the city. So all those three factors together are, those two entryways and exits from the city are really overtaxed, and it's quite unbelievable. I was talking to a resident out on Towers Road, for example, and he showed me pictures that he had taken just before Christmas, where the traffic on Towers Road alone was backed, right up to Pine Street out on Mount Edward Road. So it's really taxed in that north end of the city. So this is a plan only. It's a plan to design a safer way, a more efficient and effective way to move traffic in and out of the city at the peak times. And we, Mr. Adams, will be working with his counterparts in the Intergovernmental Affairs and Strategic Planning to approach the province, the provincial government, for their assistance in this program. And it'll basically be designing a better way to handle traffic in and out. It's really gotten out of control. You see it in the summertime, especially if you're coming in from the North Shore. Man, oh man, at 10 after 4 when the governments are off at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, the people that are exiting the city, it's just unbelievable. Anyway, that was one topic that we spoke of. The other topic that I want to bring up tonight is the traffic count data policy, procedure and policy that's in your package. Over the years, the city has accumulated a lot of traffic studies for different people, for our own use, for other people's uses, and there's the whole issue has been there's been no consistency of applying the rules and the procedures when a firm or a member of the general public wants to use some of our data. So this, it's also a procedure and a policy. It will provide guidance and direction to staff when they're dealing with various firms in the city, various individuals in the city, where they're charging back the cost. Some of these traffic studies cost between $400 and $1,000. Yeah, it's taxpayers' money when the city has these traffic studies done. So when a private firm wants to use this information that the city has garnered, we think they should pay something back into the pot to repay the taxpayer for their use. It wouldn't be anywhere near the $400 to $1,000 that was paid originally, but it'll be a contribution towards costs in obtaining that. The final item, I have one resolution tonight, Your Worship, having to do with the extension of winter maintenance services for the city of Charlottetown with Chapman Brothers. So if any questions, I'd be pleased to answer them. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Durand.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Councillor Duffy. I've been getting a couple of calls there today, but I've been fielding them the last number of weeks, and I brought it up the other night at our meeting there about I'd like to say in the cheers and jeers section there today, it talked about the Belvedere roundabout. And they said that we were, this is the third term, so it would be 2 for me particularly. And he asked, like, when are you going to do it? And I said, well, I asked the question and I was given some clarity on it. I told him, I said, well, you know what, maybe you could watch tonight and I'll ask Councillor Duffy, who is the chair of Public Works, to try to give an explanation of why this intersection is not being done. I said we had three pieces of the puzzle. We don't have the fourth one, but he would rather that come from yourself that has a little more knowledge about this than I would. So would you be able to explain to him about why we're not completing that at this time? Would that be possible?
Well, I don't know if I could, Councillor Drong, but I could call on our finance chair for 2 reasons. He has been the person, the driving force behind this as the former finance chair. And also, it's a financial question rather than the city's, I could say, the city's ready to go when we have a participation of some other parties, and I can turn that out. I can ask Councillor Bernard if he could address it. We're talking about the roundabout at Belvedere, with your history on that issue and the financial aspect of the whole thing.
Yep.
Thank you.
So we have design that was done, so over the last number of years, we've been, 3 of the 4 properties have been bought up. There's a design ready to go. The issue has been getting provincial and federal funding. So it's usually, we usually do these big projects in 1/3 shared funding each. So the last number of years, although we hear that there's a program coming that will be able to cover that, it hasn't come to fruition for us. Now, having said that, the province has to be in on side too, because they're 1/3, and the province has been doing a lot of projects over the last few years. So it's last time we got a price on it was a $5.5 million restructure, and so we've been waiting for the partner funding to come in. I can tell you that when the airport roundabout was done, again, there wasn't a program for it, but the airport come up with their 1/3. So the province was in for their 1/3, and we were in for our 1/3. So now it's interesting you bring that up, because the province did bring that up at the meeting that we had with them with Councillor Yankoff. So don't know if anything will move or not. As of right now, we don't know of a program that will fund it the other 2/3, but I think the province may be looking into that right now. So.
Thank you.
May I add to that? So as you can see, Councillor Drong, it has nothing to do with the city. The thing that was there with the jeers and cheers this morning is another capital budget passed by the city of Charlottetown, and still no roundabout. But as usual, some people that make these statements don't have the facts, and those facts those are the reasons why it's not gone anywhere. We're ready when the other people are ready. Thank you.
I appreciate that, both councillors there. Now it's on record. This is the reason why. I can't keep saying why, it's not in the budget, but that's a great explanation by both. And we touched it on the other day as well, was engineering issues. I go back to Parkview Drive, or I go back to, Centennial Drive people. You didn't get it in again this year. I said, well, there's another budget coming up. We're trying. Well, they were here and did all the stake work, the engineering. I said, yes. I've asked them again. Your request is in. They do other engineering. There's different, areas, different wards that get work done. We are still on the list. But I said, I did bring it up, and I'll ask it tonight too, that once we do the engineering for certain projects, I'm just hoping that we'll be able to get these projects completed before we get too far ahead down the road with different engineering projects. So you gave me a great explanation last meeting on that. So, I'm just trying to tell the residents as best I can the reasoning why things are not getting done. Thank you.
Okay. Seeing no other questions, we can move on to the resolution.
Further, that the mayor and CEO
Question.
Questions been called? Sorry.
Favor.
Okay, Councilor Drong.
Thank you. I didn't notice this one. I'm just wondering, has this gone out to tender? Like this is a new, for an additional 5 years? I know this, the service is great in our area. They do a good job. The maintenance service agreement, is that for the snow plowing? Is that what this is for?
Yes, Your Worship, it didn't go out to tender. It's a provision in the original 5-year contract that a 5-year extension is possible,
Okay,
and that's what we're invoking here. Thank you, Your Worship.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing no other questions, all in favor? Okay. Motion is carried 8-1.
What's that?
That conclude your report, Councillor Duffy?
Yes, it does.
Thank you. We'll move on to Council Advisory Committee and Councillor McLeod.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. The Council Advisory Committee did not meet last month. We were scheduled and we made room for budget discussion, so we are presently meeting in the near future. Any questions? I'll try to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Durant?
Thank you. It's the last two questions, I promise, but I just noticed I couldn't find the terms of reference for your committee, so I'm hoping to get that in the next couple of days. I have a concern there regarding your opinion piece in the Charlottetown Guardian the other day. You know, I was kind of taken aback by it, where it says that there's never been any talk amongst councillors of doing a review, and if a review would be done, it would be a departmental basis, not the entire organization. Now, the first question I have with this comment is, as I've been trying since I got elected, you know, to get a review of how everything is run. On many occasions, I stood in this chamber, I have asked for a review to see if we're doing business at 100%, you know, here at City Hall. And if everything is done 100% and it's rolling right along, then you know, I'll never have a question about it. But if we find something that is not quite 100%, then we could adjust this and move on and complete our business. You know, secondly, you stated that these reviews cost a lot of money. Now, I don't know how much they cost. You know, I don't know anything about that stuff. But I do know that, you know, when I talk to a resident and I say, listen, you know, everything is 100%. 100%, you don't have anything to worry about, you know, but I do have questions. I had a number of questions over this term, and you know, they haven't been, you know, fully answered. So, you know, when this comes in the paper, it just throws me for a loop, because I get these phone calls. Well, I thought you were asking questions. I am, you know, maybe this was wrongly printed or something like that, but, you know, I've been asking for months, but, you know, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, you're here, council's here, and when I've asked, so I can't understand why it said that this was never asked. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor Durant, for your question. So, first of all, I guess when you refer to an administrative review, that's a complete review of all city operations from head to toe. And I haven't had that discussion with anybody that we need to, you know, we just went through a review a few years back. There is a flow chart of where we are today and where we're going. And that flow chart is available, and it's, but I think the questions you're asking is more on a fiscal, financial situation. I think finance, to me anyway, has answered your questions. The auditors have been in. They've explained everything. Our finance manager has explained things that seems to be quite satisfactory to me anyway. But the question from the Guardian was there any discussion on an administrative review? And I said, as far as myself and council, or the council advisory committee, the only conversation we ever had was on departmental reviews, right? And for example, I believe there's one now with fire. And from time to time, if council feels that one department's not working well, then that's a choice council can make, and that's where we're at. But at no time, as the Guardian stated, have I had any discussion of doing an administrative review from top to bottom. That's what was intended in the Guardian's article. I hope that helps solve that question for you. Moving forward, you know, with financial questions, that's your right to do so. But I think, you know, again, there's no bells or alarms coming from the auditors, and I think that's a good sign. And if there is, then we definitely got to address them. And I thank you for your keenness on trying to make sure that those folks are doing their job. So outside of that, I hope I tried to answer your question for you. Thank you.
Yeah, that does some, Councillor MacLeod. I applaud you for your professionalism. In that case, you know, we had a lot of staff leave, you know, right away within a few months. So that's why I was asking at the first of when we get sworn in. So, you know, I was asking for that, and I tried to put motions, blocked. And
Councillor Durant, just the personnel matters, we'll leave that part of it, but you can keep going with your question, but the personnel piece will.
Okay.
Okay.
Sure.
Thanks.
Yeah, so, I mean, you know, I was trying to get it done, so I just, you know, this came up and in the paper, and, you know, I've tried to tell people that I'm trying to look after their interests, make sure everything's 100%, so, you know, I appreciate that. So, I'll ask another question if I can, when I'm up here. Recently, we accepted the findings of the Remuneration Bylaw and Allowances Commission, and within those recommendations came a recommendation of reducing committees. I'm just wondering, is this going to occur? Like, are we adopting all the recommendations from this, the findings from this committee? I know myself, you know, you know, you're trying to get to the meetings. There's all these special meetings. There's, you know, lunchtime meetings. We changed ours to 7 a.m. meetings. So, you know, it's a lot. So when they come out with this recommendation, you know, I was just wondering, are we going to have the chance to limit these meetings?
Thank you very much again, Councillor Long, for your question. Very good one. As stated in the Council Advisory Report there, we did not meet in the month of December. So that is the main goal on the agenda, is to discuss the findings from that commission. And if the committee chooses to do so, we'll be forwarding it here to council for more discussion. And then on, if so, you know, to intergovernmental affairs in the province and so on with the MGA Act. Thank you.
Thank you. That answers all my questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor McCabe.
Hi, thank you. I think I just needed to provide clarification to everybody here because, first of all, anything to do with remuneration and stuff really doesn't go through the council advisory. It's to come through HR department. That's part of my terms of reference with my committee. And the same as the working in collaboration around any ongoing reviews, that has to be amended through our HR committee too. So really, the only person that should be speaking to that, which I won't because it is staffing and it's operational and confidential, is me as the chair of the HR committee.
Once I get the terms of reference,
So that-
then I'll be able to figure it out.
I'm
Thank
starting
you.
to learn them, yeah.
Okay, so we'll move on under, oh, I'm sorry.
No. I just have something under new business.
And I have a question.
Councillor
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So I believe what Councillor Durant was referring to, Councillor McCabe, is that some of these issues are not necessarily remuneration. There's other suggestions as to terms of reference as far as the mayor's concerned, his duties and other job duties. So first it would come to us, and then we appropriately would work through the flow chart of committees. Thank you. I don't want to step on your toes.
Get your terms done and then we can all understand your roles too, see? We'll
Thank
all
you.
be on the same page.
We'll move on to new business. We have 2 resolutions, and Councillor, as you have a comment?
I just have just a little statement. I was involved with the Music PEI Awards, and they're here all weekend. They're very well attended, and I would like to congratulate the Guild because they won the Venue of the Year Award, and Councilor Yankoff that, and just remind everybody about Jack Frost on the weekend. Thank you.
Thank you. First,
Moved by Councilor Twill, second by Councilor Minkoff, whereas in late December 2019, the community of Tyne Valley lost their community arena to a devastating fire. And whereas Tyne Valley is competing for $250,000 through the craft hockey ball competition. And whereas hockey players from the Charlottetown area often commute to Tyne Valley for tournaments and games due to the tight nature of hockey community on Bishop Island, be resolved that the city of Charlottetown support Tyne Valley's bid to become the next craft hockey zone.
Councilor Bernard.
Yeah, I think, who was the seconder?
Lana?
Alana, yeah, okay. All right. No, I was just gonna say that, and Alana should be. I mean, Alana brought this up about a month ago, and I noticed my name was on it, but I just wanted to make sure it was changed because, like I say, she brought it up, and, yeah, it's a good resolution.
Your worship?
Okay, Councilor Twill.
Thank you. I think what Lana brought up, Councilor Bernard, was funding. All this is a resolution in support of supporting Tyne Valley in the devastating fire. I know that they're competing with other hockey communities across Canada, and you know, I think as a capital city, I believe that we should be supporting our neighbors in Tyne Valley. This doesn't have any financial implications. This is just strictly goodwill, good support on behalf of the citizens of Charlottetown, and I certainly want to wish the people of Tyne Valley the very best in their fundraising efforts and all the work that lies ahead to construct a new facility, and certainly whatever we can do to help them, I'm all in favor.
Yeah, no, and that's true, and I mean, we all know that especially in the smaller community like Tyne Valley, the rinks become the hub of the community. So we all know how important this is, and so, like I say, I think Alana brought up, and you're right in the context she brought it up, but anyway, I think we all want to see Tyne Valley up and going with a new facility sooner rather than later, so, yeah, I support it.
Okay, thank you. All in favor? Okay, motion is carried 9-0. Thank you.
Whereas the traffic safety becoming of increased concern for many residents throughout the city of Charlottetown. Whereas Charlottetown Police Services could benefit from increased resources to address these concerns. And whereas the reinstating of dedicated traffic reinforcement unit in the city of Charlottetown would increase safety and would be a benefit to our residents by increasing patrols around the neighborhoods, schools, and public parks. Be resolved that Charlottetown City Council direct Protective Emergency Services Committee to explore the reinstatement of a dedicated traffic enforcement.
Okay, Councilor Twill.
Thank you. Basically, what the resolution is calling for is the Police Protective Services Committee to explore that option. One time, we used to have a traffic division in the city of Charlottetown. It was eliminated a number of years ago with a police review. Everybody's talking about departmental reviews. Well, that was one review that had eliminated the traffic unit. What we're asking here tonight is to go back to the Protective Services Committee to explore the options. I believe the time has come to have a dedicated traffic unit here in the city of Charlottetown. We often hear about speeding in our neighborhoods, around our parks, and particularly in the school zones. I believe it'd be advantageous. I'm speaking as one member of council, but Mr. Duran, I'm asking you to shepherd that through your committee, and whatever I can do to bring this to fruition, I'm definitely on board. Whether it's the existing funding that the police allocated to the police department, or whether other initiatives that we need to take outside of that. And also, when we attended the FCM conference, I went around the expo, talked to different agencies that are there, business people that are looking at speeding in the neighborhoods, and technology is of big usage now. A number of years ago, when they had technology on the 401, it was a cash cow. It's not so much in the 401, it's in the school zones. It's in the neighborhoods, in and around the parks, and certainly look forward to that exercise taking place and those discussions taking place. I know that we'll be following up as well, Mr. Duran, so ask council to forward this back to the Protective Services Committee for that exploration to take place.
Okay, seeing no other comments, all in favor? Motion's carried 9-0. Thank you. Just need a motion to adjourn. Moved by Councillor McCabe, second by Councillor Ramsey. Thank you, Council.
Peter, thank you for the card.
Cheers and cheers.
Oh, sorry, Terry. Pulling down my dress there. Aaron, I'm only gonna have you. Here for the dress. I know.
Oh, and it's always the capital city.
I quite enjoy this. Yeah. Yeah, you get to go home and enjoy your family.
That's all right, that's all right.
Good night.
He's over.
Here and there.
Huh? Oh, everything's wonderful. I tried to send you on a trip. I don't care. I tried to send you on a trip, didn't I? Oh, another man. Huh? Hey, I said, who's your boy? I thought it was Duffy. And then when he said it was you, I said, well, take him with you.
He ain't going.
We want to do a quick interview with you on the old Prince Edward
Okay.
property.
With everybody.